The United States has long been known for being a country full of linguistic diversity. According to the United States Census Bureau, at least 350 languages were being used across the country in 2015. In this video, we will delve into the ideas about language that are prevalent in the United States today, particularly the English-only movement and the use of standardized English in the country. Despite being such a diverse nation, ideas about language have shifted immensely since the nation's infancy. This has caused language ideologies, or beliefs, attitudes, and ideas about language that almost always serve the interests of a particular group to be developed. Immigrants are now faced with the idea that they should know and speak English fluently, and they are pressured by mainstream culture and political agendas to adhere to this idea or language ideology. When speaking their native languages, they often encounter discrimination.
It's true. They probably paid. We probably paid for every bit of that stuff. You know that? Probably all the food they get and everything else. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. That's okay. Speak English. You're in America. If you don't know it, learn it.
Lived in California for 20 years, and English is our first language, so you need to speak English.
I'm sorry about that.
Miss Cambodia is here and doesn't speak any English, and not a single other person speaks her language. Can you imagine? Like, Francesca said that would be so isolating, and I said yes, and just confusing all the time.
Despite being such a diverse nation, ideas about language have shifted immensely since the nation's infancy. During the writing of the Constitution, the American forefathers considered making English the nation's official language. However, they decided against this because they considered the U.S. to be a land of freedom. During that time, speaking multiple languages was seen as an advantage in trade, education, and missionary work. This continued well into the 19th century as the immigrant groups educated their children in schools speaking their mother tongue. Then in the 1880s, a new surge of patriotism caused by events such as the imminence of World War I and the Spanish-American War created a shift in American view. English began to be viewed as the American language. On top of this, newly emerged industrial economy also had made English literacy a major must-have in the important sectors of the workforce. In the following interviews, we explore how immigrants of different ages and ethnicities encountered modern American culture, how they have adapted and adopted to the American language ideology of English only, and how the use or failure to use standard language has affected them.
My name is Delia Karina Cruz.
Okay, could you please tell us the story a little bit about how you experienced American culture for the first time? Like, how old were you?
I was 14 years old when I came the first time to America.
And where did you come from?
Guatemala.
Okay, and what language was it?
Spanish, only Spanish.
Did you speak any English at all?
No.
None?
None.
How did you learn that?
I learned, I went to junior high when I got here. I came to in 1984, so they registered me to the junior high, and I started in the ESL program.
Wow, what was that like?
It was different. It was totally different. I knew how to learn how to write back in my country. We had English, but it wasn't fluent. We only knew some words, and we didn't pronounce it correctly, of course, and we knew how to write it, but we didn't know how to make sentences or have a fluent conversation. And that's what I learned here.
Were you ever told to speak English in America?
No, I didn't have that experience. With at work, not at school. They did, but I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Probably when I started school, they did, but I didn't understand what they were saying because I didn't know any the language. But later on in my life, when I got older, I have not told that. I have heard people telling other family members or friends that, but not to myself because I will speak the language already. But not personally, no.
What do you think about that idea that people should speak English in America? Do you think
I think it's a good idea if they can learn the language, but that doesn't mean that they have to only speak English. They can always speak their own language because this is a country full of different cultures, different people from different countries. We have hundreds of countries in this country, so I think it will be nice if we all learn English, but that doesn't mean that we cannot not only speak English, always speak other languages too, not to lose our culture, not to forget about our culture and our language.
And have you ever been told to speak English in America?
No, I have not, but I have friends that have.
What do you think about the idea that everyone in America should speak English?
I don't like it because I think people should be able to speak whatever they want, and languages are just so interesting and it helps you learn about different cultures and connect with other people, so I think it's great.
Start off with maybe you telling me your name.
My name is Eric Esco.
And how old were you when you came to the United States?
21 years.
21. Where did you come from?
I'm from Guatemala City.
And what language do you speak?
We speak Spanish.
Did you know any English at all when you came here, or did you learn it all?
No, nothing.
You learned that all here?
Yes.
And how did you learn it?
It's very hard because when we come to this nation, we try to looking for a future, come for work. But you know, one of the problems that we find is the language.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the friends that in that time, they tell me that I need to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started doing school.
And what was your experience like there? Was it positive?
It's very exciting because it's new for us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're little, you don't think about it that you're gonna need to learn another language
Yeah.
of changing the nation. But it's exciting. I think it's hard because it's different,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But
Have you ever had an experience where someone told you that you had to speak English in America?
yes, one of the first thing that I remember that is in the school.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to the school, the teachers all ask, you know, if you're gonna live here, you need to speak English.
Do you think that's true? Do you think that should be true?
Of course, because if I'm gonna do something in this nation, so I need to learn that because it's important, you know, because sometimes, you know, people look like you know, and tell them why you don't speak English, why too many years in this nation you don't try to, you know, to learn. So.
It's Ray Camillo.
Okay. And how old were you when you moved to the U.S.?
I was born and raised in Japan until I was 11 years old, and I moved here when I was 11. And I've been living here ever since.
Very cool. Alright. And you said you're from Japan, so what language do you speak?
So I speak Japanese and English fluently.
Very cool. Did you have any prior knowledge of English before you came here?
Not really. The only, I could only do like a little bit of alphabet here and there, and just know a few words, like cat, dog, like small languages, but nothing with grammars or something that makes sense.
Yeah. So how did you learn English then?
Honestly, just by coming here. So at first it was definitely difficult. In like after first week of coming here, I started going to an elementary school, with everyone, domestic students, and at first, probably about a year or so, I couldn't really speak with anyone, so I would only like nod or like just say hi. But I think it was like after a year when I had my first dream in English. And that's when I started knowing like, oh, my English is getting a little better.
Yeah.
So as I practiced more by talking to people, talking to friends, or like asking questions, my English got better and better. And I'd say I probably got to like about native level English 2 or 3 years later.
What do you think about the idea that people should only speak English in America?
I don't think I would feel comfortable about that at all, just because I think in both languages, both Japanese and English, because sometimes it's easier for me to speak English and sometimes it's easier for me to think or speak in Japanese. So for me, if I am restricted to only speaking English just because I live in the United States, I think it will limit me to express how I really feel.
Yeah. Do you feel like whitewashed at all, or feel like you've lost your culture because you speak English more so nowadays?
Yes and no. Just because whatever time I do go back to Japan, somehow, even if I wear like very Japanese clothes and speak native Italian, people usually recognize me, or like just I'm shopping or something, and some random strangers would talk to me and be like, are you from here? Or like, oh, like, are you from another country? And I usually tell them, no, I'm not. Like, I was born and raised in Japan. And they're like, what? But do you live here? And I'm like, oh, I guess no. Like, I'm Japanese, but like I've been living in the United States, and they can usually tell which. Maybe it's because of like my skin tone, because in Asian countries that women are usually having much more pale skin because that's how they see the beauty.
Yeah.
So that could be why, or maybe how I express my feelings, like I smile more maybe. And especially in Japanese culture, you're not supposed to smile very often. You're not supposed to express your feelings that often. So that could be why. But I guess in those times, I feel like I am kind of losing my Japanese-ness. But at the same time, I don't think I've lost it completely.
How is standardized language used in the US? Although the US is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world, there remains an ideology of English only, or proper English. This sentiment permeates the country as a form of acceptable racism that affects its society and institutions. Speak English or English only is an attempt to make English the national language and consequently birth phenomenons such as whitewashed and fobs in minority communities. Whitewash is a slang term used in minority communities for members within that appear assimilated in Western society. They view this as a form of homogenization and erasure of their unique ethnic cultural identity. The other phenomenon is FOB. Widespread in education sites, the term FOB is an acronym for Fresh Off the Boat, marking immigrants as the other and marginalizing them. The effects of standardized language are not exclusive to social settings, but also creates a disadvantage for minorities from potential job opportunities or housing applications. All in all, the main use of standardized language is fuel for racist idealists for a perfect nation that only speaks proper English and marginalizing minority communities.
Do you ever feel looked down upon because of your accent when you speak English?
Not too much anymore, because I've been really lucky in terms of accents. Especially nowadays, not a lot of people usually realize that I am from a different country until they speak to me for a long time. But I remember with my sister that moved here the same time as I did, but she was 2 years older. She had a much harder harder time than I did because she had a little more thicker accent than I did. So because of that, she didn't like to speak with anyone in English, and she ended up kind of excluding herself from the group or like not hanging out with anyone. She stayed at home most of the time, and right after high school, she ended up actually moving back to Japan because she felt very uncomfortable in the United States.
Hi, Edmana, how are you?
Hi, Giselle, how are you?
Great. I wanted to ask you a few questions. I wanted to start out by asking you your name.
Maria Tewksbury.
So where are you from?
I am from El Salvador.
And how old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 6 years old, going on 7.
Okay, so I imagine you didn't speak any English.
No, I did not. We were told by my grandma on the plane, I remember on our way here, to make sure that when we spoke Spanish to pronounce our S's really clear, because Salvadorians tend to have a thick accent with the S.
Okay, so you learned English here?
Yes.
And so you must have had an accent.
I definitely did.
Have you ever felt like at a disadvantage because of your accent?
Yes, many times.
Can you give us an example?
Recently, I went to a high-end department store. I went with my husband, but I asked him to stay in the car to wait for me. And as soon as I walked into the store, I noticed that I wasn't greeted the same way other people were being greeted. And besides that, the lady at the register, when I went and I approached her to ask her and tell her what I was there to look for, and there was a word I couldn't think of in English. And I was trying to describe to her the product I wanted, but because I wasn't able to describe it in the proper English, I guess, she started giving me this confused look, and she even smirked a couple of times. So I felt really uncomfortable, and I texted my husband right away. I'm like, hey, come out here and just help me, please. And so when they saw my husband walk in, because he looks American, he is American, their entire attitude changed, and I felt, belittled, I guess. And, but yeah, you can tell that their attitude changes around others, and compared to the person that doesn't speak their perfect English language.
So, when you say their attitude changes around others, who do you mean? Who are the others?
The ones that can speak better English than I can.
Okay. And do you think it should be allowed for them to discriminate or make you feel uncomfortable because you don't speak it?
Not at all. Because I think a lot of things are being, there's huge movements on protecting others, nowadays, that I think, that should also be taken into account as a form of, not racism, but, how can I say? Racism, I guess. They should, they shouldn't be allowed to do that, especially employees, to wherever you go.
Okay. Do you feel like you're the only person who's ever experienced this inequality?
No, my grandma, my mom, they all have some stories to tell, yes.
Does it happen pretty often, or
yes.
Is it? So it's a pretty common occurrence.
Yeah, and I think they get taken advantage a lot, and they don't know it.
And why don't they know it?
My grandparents, when they tell me, I'm like, wait a minute, they weren't supposed to do that, or they definitely did get taken advantage.
And that's because of their limited knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for sharing with us, Maria.
Oh, you're welcome.
Despite being created as a home for freedom and diversity, the United States' ideas of language have transformed over time. Language ideologies concerning which language should be used and how it should be used have developed, leading to a socially accepted form of discrimination. Immigrants arriving to the United States are confronted with the notion that English is the American language, and that in order to succeed, they must learn it. However, Even after learning it, immigrants still face the risk of being marginalized if they are unable to speak using standard English. The English-only and standard English ideologies permeate American culture and affect immigrants from all places, ages, and ethnicities.